Evening, everyone. Welcome to our March 8th Planning Board meeting. Would you please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Steve, would you please take the roll?
Chairman John Curry,
Here.
Vicki Gannon,
Here.
Nancy Garbino,
Here.
Jack Mattis. Here. Bruce Prince,
Here.
Chris Zaberto.
Here. Thank you. First on our agenda is the minutes from February 8th, 2023. Vicki, did you have something?
Yeah, I have one comment / correction to make, and I apologize that I had noticed it sooner. And I don't have my copy of the minutes before me. I was reading it on an iPad. In the discussion of Green Tree, the applicant, because I'd asked for clarification, the applicant, I believe, indicates, the representative for the applicant that we have before us indicates that he is the contract vendee. I believe that's what he said, contract vendee. But if you read the minutes, it seems to say that he's the owner. And I think there's a slight difference between contracts. So if you could take a look back, because it was my recollection that that's what he said.
And perhaps, tonight for the record, the applicant can
Absolutely.
address that and we'll make sure that the
Sure.
minutes are revised accordingly.
Right,
We'll wait. We won't vote on the minutes tonight.
That's fine.
Okay.
exactly.
All
Thank you
right,
so much.
sure.
Again, so I should.
No, we want to get it right.
No demerits.
Not this time.
Yeah.
First on our agenda is a public hearing for the Pan A proposed 2-lot subdivision at 19 Olive Drive. And for the record, we've received memos from Woodard and Curran and from our town planner. Good evening.
Good evening, John Carell for the project. Since we were here last, most importantly, we submitted to the health department for their approval of the subdivision. And we received comments back from Anthony Cunny. Recently, I sent them over to Mr. Robbins and Steve Werfel, and for your information. Basically, the comments were details, nothing outrageous. They'll be addressed quickly, and we still have to tweak the stormwater a little bit, just so we know. We're collecting stormwater off the roof and putting it in infiltration practices, and we're collecting stormwater off the driveway and putting them in rain gardens, and we have a berm below the rain garden to further protect the down gradient properties. And as I indicated last time, the soils on this property are very good soils. They're sandy soils, and the water is going to go into the ground before it goes overland. That is all.
Okay. Steve and Dave.
Jack, can you describe the soils that you found on the first lot?
The first lot, the soils were not as sandy as the report rates for the soils on this lot were 3 minutes, 4 minutes per inch. The soils on the other lot were more in, I think it was 8 to 10, a little bit tighter, but much, it's still a very good percolating soil.
So there's some variability in the soils across this area a little bit. And what was the stormwater design for the first lot, which I guess for the record didn't come before this board because it was a redevelopment of a single existing lot, not a subdivision in that case. But
it was infiltration practices for the roof and the driveway.
And what was the design storm that was designed to retain?
The 25-year storm.
5-year storm. Okay. So under the 25-year storm, the stormwater from that site should match pre-development conditions. The flow rate leaving the site should be at or less than 25-year, the 25-year pre-development.
Well, yes.
Yes. The one element I know you mentioned continuing to tweak the rain garden design a little bit. I don't know if you had any further conversations with the health department with Mr. Cunny over whether the rain garden is suitable as you're showing it, or if it needs to be revised. Have
No,
you had a chance to talk to him?
I sent them down both the plans. One had the rain gardens wholly added 100-year, and the other one had them slightly into the not 100-year, the 100-foot radius. He hasn't gotten back to me because he works 2 days a week.
Yeah.
So he'll be in tomorrow. And we can tweak the rain gardens to get them all out at 100-foot radius if we have to. The rain gardens are, it's a depression in the ground that treats the stormwater before it gets into the ground, evapotranspiration and all that stuff.
And the health department's review included septic and well both?
Oh, septic and well both. Yeah, sure.
And did they have any comments on the location of the proposed well?
No. No, you can put a well 10 feet from the property line. If you have two wells, the two wells can be 20 feet from the property line. I mean, 20 feet apart. Sorry.
Okay. And I think we had some minor comments as well on, oh no, you addressed that one. Never mind. I apologize. Okay. So there's some additional cleanup on the rain gardens and some clarification on the location to the health department. We're also looking for, I think, some additional design data on the storms, but you have our comments. Do you have any questions on what we were asking?
No, at this time, no.
Okay, thank you.
Board, the public hearing is still open. Do you want to hear from the public before we hear your comments? Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
Anybody from the public hearing is still open. Anybody from the public, like, yes, please just come up and state your name and.
My name's Charles Signorelli. I live on 8 Peach Road. The property adjoins the back of my property. My well is about 10 feet off of his property line. I get, since the new footprint house that they refurbished and put the septic system in there, whatever they did, I get water now coming from the right side of my property. There's pictures that I sent on the water on the property. And well, he's talking about the percolation. Okay. My dad was a builder, so we used to do perk test holes, and then the health department would come and do their testing. He's on an uphill side of my house. That left lot, the percolate is very sandy if you look at the perk test holes, but that means that that water is going to move quicker and come down through my property and into my property, which is so close. The lot is narrow. And he's talking about the rainwater and everything. And there's not enough room even for expansion for the septic system there. My engineer wrote a revised letter. I have a letter from my engineer that was sent to you guys, and he added something else to it. I have copies to give to you guys. Also here from Don Elmendorf, who's my engineer. It's, to me, being around construction all my life, the way they're going to put this house directly behind my house. I'm living in the town of Somers for 45 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not Somers-like to let a house go in. I mean, they got the footprint in. The house looks beautiful. It's not in my way, but now they're going to try to squeeze this other house in directly behind my house. I just can't see it happening with the way the septic system is. And also Mrs. Smith's house, if you look at some of his septic limit lines from when they were doing the subdivision, trying to get the subdivision approved the last time, it's within 50, 60 feet of her well on the corner of her house. It's an uphill side, no matter what. The law of the state is 200 feet on the uphill side. I don't care about indirect septic or anything else that they talk about in that essence, where they're designing a septic field to go to the left and it's not indirectly coming at your well. But water, we all know what water, you get a leak in the roof over here and it comes out somewhere on the other end of your house. Water has its own mind. And who knows what it's going to do on that. It's a steep slope. It's just, and like I said, the lot is narrow. It's long and it's narrow. And there was an engineer, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Mr. Bibbo. He was trying to get that approved, and he came and measured. He asked me one time, can I measure for your well and everything. He was doing stuff. And he says, I don't think they're going to get an approval here for a lot. And this was told to me, 15 years ago. So I just can't see how this house is going to go in directly behind my house. And it's going to affect my privacy and a resale on my house eventually. And then who knows, it's going to contaminate my well. Then how could he guarantee me that drilling a well, like he said, it could be 10 feet off the property line? How could he that when he puts his well 20 feet, that when he disturbs the ground, what happens if it destroys my well? Jim Mason, who lived at the end of our road, when they were doing the test wells for the condominiums that are on Union Valley Road, and they were doing them along the power line, Mr. Jim Mason, his well went dry after they dug all the test wells along for the condos when they were doing the condos. He had to dig a new well. And that was within, I would say, around 100 feet from his well. I'm concerned about it, I mean, and then, like I said, Mrs. Smith, and even my neighbor, Dante, who lives across that last septic, where it said septic limit line on the stakes. If you took a measurement to his, it's within 200 feet also. So it's not only my well, there's two other wells, and even Tommy Toomer's well is within the 200 feet because his well is directly on the road. So to me, it just seems like, something's not right. And also there's an underground stream that comes through the ground there. And I explained this to my engineer, and that underground stream pops up right on Peach Road. It comes up from out of the ground from I don't know where, and then it runs all the way into the Beaver Brook, which runs into the Muscoot Reservoir. And that's also reservoir property. Now, that subdivision that they tried to get approved for the longest time off of Lovell Street, a lot of the problems there was because of that Beaver Brook and the water going into the Muscoot Reservoir. So I don't know. It just seems to me, it's a lot that's not buildable. It's just too tight for a septic system. I can't say much more, but I have a revised letter also from my engineer on top of the letter that he sent. I don't know if you guys want a copy of it.
Yes, like to review, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. I got,
Leave it
how
up
many
to Deb.
copies you need? I have 1, 2, 3.
We can make copies.
Just leave it with Steve.
Yep.
And we'll get, yep.
Thank you. I'll make sure they get a copy.
Some more?
If I do, I'll let you know,
Okay.
but we'll make a copy. Thank you.
But basically that's it. I mean, for what I want to say, I'm just concerned, I'm worried about I had enough issues with my well over the years, getting struck by lightning and, the water level going down and issues and stuff. I have 100 and I think it's like 150 or 160 feet, my well. And I'm just concerned, it's just, everything's so expensive. The last time I had to pull the pump because my pump went bad, it cost you like $4,000 or $5,000. And I did it, I pulled the pump myself, and I had a plumber work with me. So it's, something we have to worry about. I'm a blue collar guy, it's hard, and
Mr. Smith.
Sorry.
I was going to start asking questions, but if you're not done yet, please.
I'm done. I'm pretty much done. It's, just I'm concerned, it's tight. It's a tight lot there behind.
This is an R10
This is
zoning
an
district.
R10 zone,
Correct.
yes.
And the proposed subdivision does not affect any zoning. This doesn't have to go in front of the zoning board.
There are no variances. No,
Everything stays compliant.
that's correct.
And then as far as the measurements or the distances of septic fields, where does that fall into all of this 200 feet thing?
So the health department reviews the proposed layout.
The
including
county health
The
department.
county health department.
Okay.
Yep, that's not part of the town's purview. We just make sure that they do it, and before it goes to that county health department, try to flush out issues before
No
the
pun
applicant spends their
intended.
time doing it. The county's interpretation of 100 feet separation versus 200 feet separation does include whether that path is in direct line of drainage. And so you often will see what kind of looks like a keyway on a plan where it's 200 feet directly up gradient, but slightly to the side is 100 feet because it does not flow kind of onto the well
Right.
itself. And that the health department has reviewed the septic plan here and does not feel that the 200-foot radius should apply. Now, the question is whether there are wells across the street that are in direct drainage and within 200 feet, and we'll ask the applicant to add those additional wells on so that the health department and we can confirm that.
Sure.
But that's
If-
that's part of their customary review.
If the resident here who is voicing a concern had concerns, could he then now petition the health department to have them relook at this? Or does that still fall under our purview? Because that from what I gather, what you said, the health department gave the okay.
They haven't issued an approval. The health department still does have comments.
Right.
The setback distance between wells and the septic was not one of their comments that I recall, correct? I'm sorry, I'm looking past you. Sorry, Jerry. To Jack.
So the separation between the two wells is not.
I think the question was the separation between the well and the septic. I don't recall a comment from the health department on that separation.
Because the septics and wells, both the existing wells on the downhill properties and our own wells and the adjacent property all meet the standards, 100 feet and 200 feet if it's in direct line of drainage. We developed this keyhole that the health department's been using since the day of the flood. And that's their way of approving this plan. And there's no comments relative to the well and the septics. There is 100% expansion area on this well. Gentleman said there was no expansion area. And one has to remember that this property. He's speaking for the microphone, sorry. This property was two lots back, I don't know how many years ago, and the lots were merged by the town because they're under the same ownership. So we're just trying to go back to the original two lots, and it is a tight lot. I can't say it isn't, but it works with respect to all the restrictive distances that the health department has. And if the health department approves it, they approve it, and that's their job.
And does the health department normally do these kinds of approvals or
Absolutely.
rejections if
Yeah.
they feel that there's a health issue?
Well, there's certain standards for separation of well and septics. And if there's a subdivision, the health department approves the subdivision with respect to water and sewer. And the town approves the subdivision relative to stormwater zoning and all that stuff. It's just the way it is. And when the first lot didn't have to go to this board, as the gentleman said, because the lot wasn't a subdivision. And because of this, it's a subdivision, it has to come to this board. And the health department signs off first on the plat, and then the town planning board signs off after they're satisfied with it.
So, sir, I mean, I can definitely empathize with your concerns about the well versus septic field distances, but it's apparent that it all conforms with Department of Health standards that have been set.
How could it be? Because even his well is 20 feet closer now to his septic. I mean, I don't understand. I'm not a lawyer. I mean, I don't.
Mr. Signorelli, make sure you speak into the microphone so we capture what you're saying.
It's not possible. It's not. I'm sorry. Like I said, my dad was a builder. We built houses everywhere. I've been around construction all my life. And I could tell you a story about a well that I had to redig that cost me $27,000 because it was 10 feet off where it was supposed to be. And I was told it was okay by the health department. Bob Tony, health department in Putnam County, said, Charlie, it's okay to put your well there. I wind up having to dig that well over again and put it up. To put it up another 10 feet more cost me $20-something thousand a bit. And Mancini Trucking brought the dirt to make the road so I can get the well truck up there to redig the well.
Sure. And again, and that's something I can appreciate too, as a planning board member. I'm not familiar with Putnam County's regulations, so I don't know about.
Well, in Putnam County, they get away with murder over the years, and they have.
Right.
And you got guys in the town on Putnam Valley, in Putnam County on the board that is so corrupt.
Right.
I work for them. I know them.
Wow.
So I just don't want to see that happening in the town of Somers, you know?
Understood.
I'm like I
Assure
said,
you it's not.
there's no way that he can get the right distance between my well, Mrs. Smith's well, and it be safe. I don't care about indirect. The law is 200 feet. You could take 200 feet this way, that way, that way. It's on an uphill grade. And if the health department's approving it, I want to have the health department tell me how that's going to work and guarantee me my well is going to be safe and my property's not going to get flooded with water from that hill. Because we haven't had a bad snow in a while, and you got to see the runoff that comes off that mountain. He says it's got good percolation. Yeah. You know where that percolation goes? Into my yard. Okay. So that's my concern.
Understood. It's under consideration, I'm sure, by all of my colleagues as well.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to get
No, it's
emotional.
okay.
I'm here 45 years paying taxes in the town. I have
And
businesses
that's
here,
something that we
and I'm just
respect.
fighting for my right, and I'll fight to the death to make sure it doesn't happen.
Understood.
Okay. And that's how I feel. I feel I'm being snow jobbed by now the health department because it's not right.
Mr. Signorelli,
Okay.
did your engineer send the initial letter and the follow-up letter to the health department?
He wanted to be here. He couldn't make it tonight.
Okay,
But you can call him and talk to him and he'll explain to you about what he's seen on, on some of the plans and the way it's designed on here.
but I can't have an offline conversation with, I cannot have an offline conversation with your engineer.
Okay,
But my own personal feeling is that we're still gathering information.
right.
I would not want to close this public hearing.
Mhm.
So if your engineer could be here the next time we're meeting, I think that would be useful,
I'll have him here the next meeting.
as we're gathering.
He couldn't, he got stuck up in Albany. He apologized.
The public hearing is a gathering information process. So that's what we're doing right now. So just really trying to get everything together. So
Mhm.
I appreciate everything you're saying, and we want to see that supplemental letter.
Mhm.
And yes, okay. Also, the pictures that you sent, we received, which showed the water runoff on your property.
On the right, that's last April.
So that's from last April. So Steve, in terms of stormwater runoff, the existing problem there, how do we address what now we've been given as data at this point when we're looking at that? And I just want to make sure I'm understanding what we can do in terms of that as we think about this problem.
Well, and that's where my initial questions around the stormwater design for that first property come into play and understand, the point of discharge and how that's being managed. And if he's infiltrating to the 25-year storm, now I need to go back and look at the weather last April and see what that looked like, whether the ground was frozen, whether it was thawed. There's a lot of that we'll go back and look at that first plot and
Good. Thank
make
you.
sure that was addressed appropriately and factor that into what needs to be done on the second lot
Okay.
to try to correct, if not mitigate.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, Nancy, the one thing that is different in this proposal is that with the extension of Olive Drive to this lot, there's now, more active, planned, engineered stormwater infiltration for that component of the hillside that would then come down and hit that roadway and be infiltrated as opposed to continuing as runoff along the surface. So there are some changes to some of the run on from other sites that may be getting down to the adjoining property that would be intercepted before it gets there now.
Okay.
And that's all part of the stormwater design and part of our review. I'm sorry, Nancy.
That's okay. But would it be possible to ask you, since you're the engineer who did it, if you could provide us with a summary of the fact that the study that was done by and paid for by the town of Somers, showing that Lincolndale, because it does not have public water, and everybody in Lincolndale, R10, they have septic fields and wells, that study and that research shows that they exceed the Environmental Protection Agency for the number of septic fields and wells, and which is what drove the town to do the sewer study, which of course was voted down because they didn't want to pay for it. But could you submit that as part of our collecting documentation
I'd be happy to provide that
to
to the board.
consider this project and what we do? Because we are by law told to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of New York and the town code of Somers. So if we were to vote against the town code in this instance, we would need something scientific to back up that vote. Of course, I'm speaking for myself.
So to clarify that to a point, there is a difference between a recommendation from the EPA and the regulation
I
from the health
understand that.
department, and I'd be happy to put that in a memo to the board.
Yes. So that everybody can see it. Not everybody was here back when that was done.
I think I speak for the board. We're not going to close a public hearing tonight. I think that's pretty obvious, but I do want to ask if there's anyone else who would like to speak from the public tonight. Okay, I'm not speaking out of turn. Does everybody feel that way? We are not going to close the public hearing tonight.
No, no.
Right. Okay. And just so you know, sir, we have to take what the health department tells us through our engineer, a consulting engineer, as, for lack of a better word, Bible, and correct. Just, I mean, Woodard and Curran are very smart engineers. Steve is a very smart guy. So do you understand where we're coming from? We're kind of here in the middle. We all feel for you, trust me. But as far as what the health department is saying, it's legal. And I'm not putting words in your mouth. Is that right?
They've reviewed it against their regulations. They've provided comments to the applicant on other matters other than what's been
Right.
discussed here. Yes.
I'm talking
Yes.
specifically
They
about
haven't approved it yet.
the well and the septic. Yeah,
Being legal doesn't necessarily make it healthy.
no, but it's true. Okay. So I'm just, you understand where we're coming from too.
That's correct. It's not yet approved by the health
Right.
department. That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Which is why I suggested that you may want to petition them or contact them and say, hey, I'm involved in this application. I have adjoining property. I understand that you guys are reviewing this. Here's my feelings and my sentiment on all of this. And that, yeah, exactly. And I definitely think that his endorsement as well would certainly help them understand things from your side a little bit better.
Thank you. You understand, we're not comfortable closing.
Well, we're hearing the same comments for the last two meetings. And
But I
so we
think
know
that
what,
The comments about the additional wells across the street or something are new, are they not?
That's correct.
there's no,
Yeah.
where's there wells across the street? mean,
I don't know.
These, there's Olive Road, there's the new house that was built, and there's the house that we're trying to get approved. And there's two houses down below which have wells in the rear of their property, and those wells,
In the front of the property.
those wells are in the back of the property.
not.
Well, let's not get into this.
All right.
We're not
Yeah.
closing it tonight. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, excuse me.
Steve will.
Comments are directed
Yep.
to the chairman.
And we're not going to
Yeah.
get back and forth. Someone from Steve's office will go look. Correct, Steve? Yes.
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right, you're gonna not close the public hearing. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I
Sorry.
get a copy of that letter?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a project review for the North Edge Realty Corp. And I hope you don't think I'm going to pronounce this. Gojcaj. That's not a name, right?
I could feel that one.
Okay.
It was told to me by the owner. It's Goy as in Goya, Chai as in Chai, the Goy Chai.
Good, Chai.
Okay, thank you. Okay, North Edge Realty Corp. and Goichai application for lot line adjustment for the properties at 45 Route 6 and 5 Country Lane Drive. For the record, we're in receipt of 2 memos, one from our town planner and also from Bibbo Associates. Oh, actually, what this is, it's a conveyance of 4.14 plus or minus acres from 4.19 2-1, that's the address, 5 Country Line Drive, to 4.19 to 45 Route 6. The properties are located in the R40 and the R80 zoning districts. Thank you.
I got that. Yep, no, I'm
Review
just gonna
that.
say,
Yes.
Tim Allen could probably start on this. I'll just answer any questions that might come up.
Thanks. Good evening, Tim Allen, Bibbo Associates, with me, Jared, Jesse and Gus Boniello. We're just proposing a simple lot line change. We're asking the board to consider this under section 150-15 of the abbreviated process in your code. The property consists of 13.6 acres. It fronts on Route 6 on the south side and County Line Road on the north side. The property is 3.6 acres. Currently, it's 2 lots of about 5.8 acres and 7.8 acres. We're proposing to take this yellow line, which is here, and propose it to be just a smaller lot that's an existing house on that lot. So there's nothing new being proposed, and we are just moving that lot to the minimum acreage of 1.8 acres, which will be the new lot that's shown there in pink. The process is very simple, nothing new, just a lot line change.
Dave, you want to hear your comments, please?
Yes, so we've reviewed the application. This is similar to some of the other recent applications you've had. 1 Deansbridge Road and 11 Nita Drive. There is, as Mr. Allen had indicated and noted in our memo, there are provisions in the code that allow for an abbreviated approval process. There are some standards that are outlined in the code, which we've included in our memo. The proposed application doesn't create a nonconformity with either of the lots. So as Mr. Allen had indicated, the lot off of 5 County Line Drive is conforming to zoning in all respects with respect to lot line setbacks, with lot size, coverage, and all that. There is no creation or extension of streets or municipal facilities. The proposed action is not in conflict with the public interest or in conflict with the Somers Comprehensive Master Plan. We did note that there is no proposed development as part of this proposed action. All the applicant is doing is just merely transferring property from one property owner to the other. But there is a reference here that relates to steep slopes and wetlands. But again, while there may be some steep slopes and wetlands on the property, the applicant isn't affecting any of the action doesn't propose any development of the site at this time. So there's really that provision, I think, is satisfied. And then the other portion of that is that how this action falls under SEQR, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. A proposed lot line change is defined under SEQR as a type 2 action. And so that's one of the other categories that needs to be satisfied in order for the planning board to consider this as part of the abbreviated review process. So based on kind of the memo, the presentation that Mr. Allen has made, I think it would be our recommendation that you could proceed with an abbreviated process, schedule a public hearing, and then I think, probably wrap that process up at the next meeting.
Okay. Board member comments?
Can I ask the intended purpose of this change in lot line?
The Boniellos have purchased the property, and contractually, in buying the property, the property was going to be parceled out in this portion as shown here. Eventually, the Boniellos do have aspirations of developing the property, but it's very premature in this state right now. Contractually, as I said, part of the contract is that this lot line change be approved and that the parcel be made smaller as part of the land deal that's been made.
I appreciate the information, and I had heard that there was such a proposal. I didn't know the location for it until this evening. It's a good location, in my opinion, if that matters. And it is it has great access to public transportation if that's needed, depending on the type of housing that Boniello was proposing.
And it conforms to the master plan of the town of Somers for potential development. And again, it's premature to to get into that right now. We're in discussions with the town board, but we'll certainly, if things go the way we hope they do, we'll be back to you someday with a plan.
Thank you.
What is the nearest intersection to Route 6 on the Route 6
I'm
side?
sorry, it's Mayapack Avenue.
is.
It's just to the
Okay, because I see that on the left side of the
Yes.
diagram, but that continues. all
Yeah,
the way
it's just
through.
down the hill from Mayapack Avenue in the light there at Route 6.
Like where the tool nut is,
Exactly.
That's right.
the tool nut, right?
Yes.
That's that
Yep.
tool rental place. Okay, now I can visualize that. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have kind of put you on Route 6 somewhere.
It's okay.
Other board member comments?
Dave, if I could just make one other comment, Jared Boniello, I understand the recommendation. I understand Jared Boniello. I understand the recommendation at this point. The only thing I wanted to point out was we are under a time constraint with actually creating a lot line change at this point. The contract has been signed. It is 2 years into the signing of this particular property transfer, as you will. And I would just be curious what a public hearing, not that I'm trying to circumvent or skirt anything, but is there any need for a public hearing if the property owner we're contracting with is co-applicants on this particular application? Who else is,
It's a requirement in the code.
I think it's required. by
Even
state.
under 150,
Yeah.
15,
Yeah.
an abbreviated still requires a public hearing.
Yes. Yes.
I understand.
Yeah.
On that
There's-
note,
there's
we
a-
would ask that the public hearing be scheduled for the next available meeting and
How's the board feel about that?
Yes.
We'll do an abbreviated review process and then we'll go right to public hearing next meeting. Dave?
Yes. You could, if the board so desires, you could ask staff to prepare
A
a resolution
resolution?
Yes.
in advance of the meeting
Yes.
so that you could have
Bruce, yes.
everything resolved
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we ask staff to prepare a resolution for the next meeting and we'll also schedule a public hearing for the next meeting.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And come back with straight names. This is a strain on my little brain. Next on our agenda is application for a special permit renewal for the T-Mobile at 87 Route 202. It's an application for a special permit renewal for the existing wireless telecommunications facility. And for the record, we're in receipt of a memo from our town planner. Evening.
Good evening. My name is David Kenny. I'm an attorney with Snyder and Snyder, here tonight to represent the applicant T-Mobile Northeast LLC. Again, this is just an application for a special permit renewal. There's no development, no action being taken for construction of the facility. It's essentially just a renewal to keep the facility as it is.
We're hoping in our lifetime, we're going to see this all change.
We're working on it.
Yes, we're trying. Dave, you have any comments?
No, this is, I think, a fairly straightforward, application for renewal. You do have a resolution before you.
Yes.
Yes.
So if the board so desires, you could act on the resolution and that will allow them to continue with their operations and apply for their for any building permits they need.
If somebody has it handy, you save me digging through this and make the motion if the board approves it for this resolution. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is everybody okay with this resolution?
Yes.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution 2023-01 for the T-Mobile Northeast LLC for the renewal of a special use permit for the existing approved T-Wireless facility. And the address, it's 87 Route 202. For the record, it's town tax number, section 16.15, block 1, lot 1.1.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Do we need to state as a part of it that special permit for co-locator shall run from March 8th, 2023 up to including March 7th, 2028?
We could add that as just so that it's clear in
Clear in the record.
the record. Yes.
So for the record, with Vicky's additional comments,
That's found in page 3, permit term on the
Okay.
draft resolution.
so I make a motion that we add that to the
That
resolution,
language, Yeah.
that language. Second,
Yes, second.
Yeah.
all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dave, thank you.
Thank you. Vicky. Thank you. Next on our agenda is Michelle Barley and Nicole Stern proposed subdivision of parcel adjacent to the Green Tree Road. I just want to, is there anybody here?
They were
Representing
here. I
them?
think they're sidebarring up.
Okay. I just wanted to explain to the public
While you do that, Hogan.
what's going on here. I don't know if it's going to be tonight that we may decide to, at the next meeting, go into the EAF. What the EAF is in an environmental assessment form. And what that does is we go through a whole series of basically a lot of checkpoints. We've gotten a lot of information in, and if the board deems that we've gotten enough information to go that step, we'll decide on go forward or not go forward with this project. If we decide to go forward, it will go to the town board, and then they will make a decision on a lot line change. Correct, Dave? Have I got
Yeah,
most
I
of that
think,
right?
yeah, just to clarify, so as part of the environmental review that you're conducting as part of this application, the critical piece is the determination of significance. And after a review of the environmental assessment form, part 1, which is the long form that they have submitted, along with all of the documentation that has been prepared and submitted to you, along with all the comments that have been provided
Right.
from the public. You'll need to evaluate all of that. And if you make what's called a negative declaration, that means that all of the impacts have been identified and mitigated to the maximum extent practicable. And at that point, the project would then go to the town board for their review as part of the open space development, open area development process. If you find that the proposed action, even with all of the mitigation, still has significant adverse impacts, then you would issue a positive declaration, and the applicant would have to go through a draft environmental impact statement process, which is much more involved and elaborate with respect to the types of information. But at this point, you have a significant amount of information that has been provided by the applicant. You have comments from our office and from Mr. Robbins with respect to the potential impacts and how the application fits into its local environment. And certainly you've had a number of very good comments that have come up as part of the dialogue with your board, asking the applicant to respond to specific questions. So I think you're getting close. I would appreciate to hear from the applicant on what they have provided most recently. I would also let the applicant know that there has been some inquiry from the public with respect to the access easement that provides access across the bikeway. And the applicant should be crystal clear as to what rights they believe that they have with respect to that access easement. And I know that they provided some documentation previously, but they just need to be crystal clear with you as to exactly what they are allowed to do with respect to crossing the bikeway.
Thank you. And for the record, before you start, I have 4 more correspondence from residents. Tony Ann Hirsch. I don't have her first name, just Donald at 12 Carolyn Way, Anne Marie Quigley at Forest Lane, and Leslie Germain at 6 Valley Drive. And also for the record, we're in receipts of memos from Woodard and Curran and from our town planner. So anybody that wants to submit anything in writing, please do it to the planning office. We will read the correspondence and acknowledge it. So good evening, sir.
Good evening, Michael Caruso, Cuddy and Fader for the applicants. And I should note just as a threshold matter, I know the application is listed in the name of Borelli. Previously, the applicants were contract vendees with Borelli. They've since closed on the property. Referring to Tom and Amanda Rasek, who are sitting behind me, and the application, I think we'll have to revise just in the name of Dynamite Properties Incorporated, which is the actual fee simple owner of the property this time. So that transaction was earlier this year. So it's just an update I wanted to make the board aware of. Unfortunately, I wish Peter were here tonight because the vast majority of the information that's coming to the board is from Peter's desk in terms of the comments that were partially addressed that needed to be followed up on. So Peter's memo to the board dated February 9, I believe, addresses some of the salient comments or in his perspective, saying that he's addressed it or partially addressed it and explaining or qualifying. And I think that most of the issues he has addressed are in drawing SY2B. And I can pull that for the board, or if you'd like to go through it. I know he's added quite a bit of wetland mitigation and some, filtration, bioretention, apparatus to kind of control or mitigate against the impacts alongside the right of way and on the landscaping plan. So those buffer issues and what's depicted on that particular sheet, I think, are the most salient changes. Does the board have any questions about that or about Peter's correspondence?
Let's just hear from our town planner and our consulting engineer, and then board member comments and or questions, please.
Yes, thank you. And the technical response to our comments did address most. I don't think I had any exception to those that Peter said were partially addressed. There are a few of those that need some more information and clarification. And for the environmental assessment, there was discussion in the plans submitted, I think on the sheet that you referenced, about wetland mitigation, but the area of that disturbance associated with wetland mitigation needs to be quantified for the overall impacts. And I think that just needed to be clarified on the documents as well and as part of the EAF.
Okay, so on SY2B, you need the actual disturbance area calculated in square feet, or?
The disturbance was quantified for the proposed development, but not for the wetland mitigation area. It was
Okay,
described in
sorry.
concept, but not in quantification.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Thanks for clarifying.
That was, and I think we had a comment about a couple of missing sections. I think E3H 2 and 3 on the EAF just needed some additional data in those two sections that needed to be completed.
Okay, so E3H 2 and 3, so that would be the nature of or basis for the designation and the distance between the project and the resource in miles, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
well, I'll
For
make sure
completeness
that's
of that form.
okay. I'll make sure that that's complete. Yeah, I see that's glaringly blank. We'll make sure that's completed.
The other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I didn't mean to cut
The
you off.
and I know we'll get into a little bit the nature of the easement to address the planning board's comment. But has there been any subsequent correspondence from the DOT or Westchester County regarding the proposed signage along the trail?
I'm not aware of any particular correspondence on signage. I know that Peter's office has been in contact with DOT and my understanding and Westchester. And my understanding is that they are in a position to take action on our request, but they need a little bit more guidance from the board in terms of whether our plan is changing or any of the drawings are going to materially change, just in the terms of configuration, location of some of the features. So we wanted to be as close as possible to an acceptable set of drawings conceptually, not in terms of impact assessment or, significance review rather. So we wanted to make sure that's as close as possible before we go to them for another more concrete answer.
So what's in front of the board right now is an assessment of the environmental impacts for the proposed development, not a site plan or subdivision approval.
Right.
That would come to this board after the town board, if the town board takes an action on the 280A. And so I think what this town board or with this planning board is looking for relative to the opinion of the DOT and the county parks department is whether there are any environmental impacts, comments that they have related to the signage and the nature of the crossing. So it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg. I don't think that the nature of the development is being reviewed in detail as part of this board right now, other than to assess the overall environmental impacts. One of those impacts is obviously the crossing to the trail, and that's where we're looking for kind of guidance from those parties that have regulatory authority over what happens on that trail to confirm that what is proposed meets their requirements as well.
Yeah, when we initially started, before pre-application meetings, I had reached out to DOT and our discussions were positive without even a concept proposed. So I cannot imagine that answer will materially change now having a much more concrete, set of plans and drawings, for feasibility review. So we'll get back to the board in terms of that particular comment, if there are any on signage from DOT, as well as quantifying those disturbance areas. So we can put you in a better position relative to perhaps a significance determination.
Retired state DOT president engineer.
Dave?
I have no further comments.
Okay. How about board member comments and or questions?
John?
I had one question from the last meeting. I don't know where we got this. I think we talked about the garbage trucks crossing, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we came to the conclusion that although we don't want crossings of the trail that much, it would probably be more attractive for the residents in that area to not have some kind of garbage storage on their side of the trail. But I was wondering if you could maybe work out something where some kind of attractive mailbox system would be, since the mailman or mailwoman comes 6 days a week.
So you're referring to us.
The post office determines where they go. The builder doesn't determine it.
But I think you could work with the post office in this case, I would imagine.
We'd have to confer with the postmaster. But if you're asking for a cluster of boxes and some kind of
well, something that's attractive. I mean, we're trying to minimize the number of trips across the rail.
If the post office approves,
If the post office approves.
are you capable of putting up a multi-mailbox system?
I don't think that would be a problem for my client as long as the postmaster would approve that in concept. And it certainly would be in furtherance of the project goal, which is to minimize any unnecessary trips.
In reality, it's only 3 houses, so 3 mailboxes. Yeah.
But in fairness to those who live near it and to those who will live, potentially on the property, it would benefit all to try and reduce those vehicle trips.
Right.
So
okay,
we're certainly understanding of that.
Other board member comments and questions?
I think Bruce had a question.
Bruce, you have a comment?
I had a comment, and it may be not necessarily appropriate, but as far as I understood, this property was about 20 years ago planned for a development, of which obviously was before my time. And I'm just wondering, does anybody have history on that, of why that was refused? And and now that we have a group of laws that are much tighter than they were 20 years ago, I'm just wondering what has changed with regard to.
I actually was on the board then. I think Nancy was too. It was a completely different project.
They just didn't bother to develop. They started to develop those. Actually, it was 2 lots.
2 lots,
We
right?
recently turned it into 3 lots. They were going to develop it. They prepared to go across the bike path, but they just didn't follow through. They just didn't do it.
Oh, so it just died of its own weight.
It died, yeah. It was a real estate matter, in terms of how things were selling.
Okay.
I even remember the builder.
I see Mike has a question there.
Was the public hearing?
I'm sorry, there's no public hearing, not that we have. And I'm explaining the reason for that. This has been a policy of this board forever. And here's the reasoning. if I let you come up tonight or anyone else or 5 other people, there could very well be people at home that would like to make comments too. There will be a public hearing. I guarantee you that. Okay. But in the meantime, anything you want to submit in writing, we read. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Okay.
And I'll circulate.
Okay.
It'll be circulated.
All right, so then that'll be distributed to the board and acknowledged
Yes.
as John acknowledged all written receipts. So it'll be part of the record. I would like to
Sure.
acknowledge the applicant's response to my concerns in the EAF. Those things that I had brought up with the engineer were addressed. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I'm looking for some guidance here. I think we're still a little ways away. You gentlemen tell me.
They still have environmental impacts that they need to present to the board. And
Yep.
so that document.
Because
is
I
not
don't feel
complete.
comfortable going through it till we have some more information, correct?
Correct. No.
Okay.
Sorry, someone on the board had a comment about the easement and its restrictions. Is that a comment for the applicant tonight? I'm sorry.
Well, that was it was a comment that came up before the meeting with respect to somebody in the audience who had questioned the nature of the access easement and exactly what rights the property owner has to cross the bikeway. And so that was the comment that came up, just to the applicant to be crystal clear about what rights they have with respect to accessing the easement, crossing the bike trail. Yep.
So we're waiting on a EAF from the application?
No, you have an environmental assessment form
No.
before you. You
We'll do
have,
that, but we don't have enough information yet.
you're still waiting for some supplemental information. I would say that at the next meeting, based on the information that's provided, we could walk through each of the impact items in section 2 of the EAF. And that would provide you with additional guidance as to how the impacts have been mitigated to the extent that there are impacts. And then that'll help guide you with respect to making your eventual determination of significance with respect to the environmental impacts.
Do we have any knowledge about how many crossings there are of that easement in the town of Somers?
Oh, lots. Granite Springs,
Walden Place.
Walden Place.
There's quite a few. I think at one of the earlier meetings,
It was
they were
discussed by the
discussed,
applicant,
yeah.
The window factory in Granite Springs, a lot of trucks, they got about 20 trucks go across there.
Down by Stewart Farm.
Okay,
And an occasional horse.
Yeah, Mr. Scott may have at some point during his presentations have identified the various crossings, but perhaps
They did,
your team
did.
could
the
just,
six he identified were in Putnam County. He did not identify the ones in Somers.
Okay, so we'll, as part of, I think it might make sense perhaps if I were to put in writing a more complete submission on the nature of the easement to help guide the board. And then
Right.
perhaps we can find those crossings, obviously not just in Putnam, and bring them into Westchester and fully into the board's focus to inform you on what those crossings involve, whether they're characteristically different than what we're proposing, more intensive, less intensive, if we can get that information to help guide your EAF and your review of significance. But we have, I have a punch list at least of 3 items here to help round out the EAF to make sure that you have as much information in your significance determination in that process as well. So,
And also, if you have any comments from either Westchester County or Westchester County Park and Rec on the crossings.
yeah. Dave DeLucia, who's the head of recreation, he had asked for some supplemental information that had been provided, so we gave that to him. And we can certainly follow up to see if he has any recommendations back to the town.
my understanding is that Peter does have something from Parks and Rec.
Okay.
So we'll try to put that together as well as one submission before the next meeting. So you have it all in one place. So.
I think what was notable to me from the sidewalk was that it was a quiet area in the trail with a long straightaway and bicyclists gathering up a lot of speed. And that was kind of what was noticeable to me. The traffic was the bicyclists going very quickly
Yes.
right through that. That's kind of,
Yeah, very noticeable.
Yeah, it was real noticeable to Chris.
There are a lot of pedestrian bike accidents on the bike path. And there are signs telling them to behave.
All right. Do you need anything else from us? We'll see you next month.
No, I appreciate the board's time and we'll try to get everything in order so that you have a complete picture in front of you so that you can go through your assessment process fully. But thank you, the board, and thank you to consultants for your feedback. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, Council.
So everyone knows you will have your day. Trust me. Be patient.
I'd like to see the correspondence from Stuart Sprague. Okay.
Next and last on our agenda is, I guess, with just some talking about the zoning text amendment to add transient basis conditions to section 170-3, the definitions. And I think we'll let Dave guide us through this.
So I'll let Jerry pick up on some of this, but procedurally, the building department, working with the town, they've had some issues with some of the short-term rentals. And one of the ways of trying to address that, the building inspector drafted some language that tries to clarify transient basis for rentals of property, short-term rentals. So the language has been submitted to the town board. They've scheduled a public hearing for tomorrow night. So this is your opportunity. There's a referral process to the planning board to comment on proposed legislation, particularly with respect to zoning. So that's kind of the basis. I think that Jerry has reviewed this and he has some specific comments that you may want to consider and then refer back to the town board for their consideration for tomorrow night. And what I would do is, based on the discussion, I could put together a brief summary and I could circulate that to you all and then get that to the town board in time for tomorrow night's meeting. But I'll let Jerry kind of walk through some of his kind of the technical issues with respect to the language.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I think this arose from some litigation that I happen to be involved with for the town with Airbnbs in single family residences. And the building department determined that they would like to have the word transient defined, and it wasn't defined. Now, the proposal that is made here, the rental of rooms for dwelling, lodging, or sleeping by the owner for a period of 30 days, to me is not adequate. First, if it's not just rooms, it's homes too. So rooms are home, and it's not the owner of a lodging, it's the owner of whatever the premises. Because our dilemma was with single family houses being turned into Airbnbs for the weekend or whatever. So I would recommend that you recommend that the definition be changed, and I'll call Mr. Tula myself. I thought this had been redone, but to include the fact of a single family home, I can't think of any other dilemma that, and the owner of the premises. So the premises rather than the lodging house, it says lodging business in the recommendation. That would not be satisfactory. It causes more confusion than what it is.
Okay.
This is meant to clarify. So my suggestion is that the proposed that Mr. Tuma made be amended to reflect single family homes and the owner of premises, not lodging. The language with 30 days, et cetera, that's fine. And it's the rental or leasing. You know, that you don't, what we have here is, you know, the use of a single family home. The problem came with our definition of family that had been there for ages. And it didn't permit groups other than biologically connected. So it was basically found unconstitutional in various, so that's how all this started.
Okay.
That I think, Dave, you understand what my suggestion would be.
Yes.
Just add homes and get rid of lodging, the lodge, and make it lodging business and make it the owner of premises.
And so
The rental or leasing of a room or rooms or home for the for dwelling, lodging, or sleeping by the owner of the premises. And then it would, I think, serve the purpose.
Is part of it that the time too, was it never stated 30 days or more in the past?
No, it doesn't. That's why Mr. Tuma put that in it, which is good. But I don't want to, you know, to have I wouldn't suggest the language of the owner of a lodging.
I understand.
Because, you know, we were dealing with single family houses like your next door neighbor, and that some lawyer would find that as an exception.
Okay.
That would not be clarifying. It would be causing more chaos.
Can you expound on the overall goal of the language change? I read the language and there wasn't enough context for me to completely understand it. Is it that we're looking to limit
Yes.
Airbnb rentals to
Correct.
30 days?
No.
No.
To exclude Airbnbs,
To prevent it
to prevent, okay?
from a single family home owner from renting out through the Airbnb process
Correct.
for
Yeah.
any duration of time.
Well, I mean, if you do it for 6, you're allowed to, I mean, the idea is you're allowed to rent your house.
Right.
You can rent your house out, but if you rent it out for, 2 months or 6 months or a year or 2 years, you have a family living or whatever considered to be a family living in there that has, some, is consistent with the neighborhood. You have 10 different groups of people showing up in the summer, for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
You have
So
commercial enterprise.
So this is as a result of an occupancy issue where we had multiple families under Airbnb
You know
in a
what
single
you
family
know what an
house.
Airbnb is.
Yes, I have
Come for a weekend if you want to go someplace. And there are Airbnbs all over, but do you want them in a single family neighborhood? That was the issue.
At the same time. Or again, I'm still confused. So I own a single family house.
Yes.
And I want to rent it out.
You want to rent it out, and you rent it out for the last weekend of March, and then to one group of people, and the next weekend to another group of people, and then the next weekend to another group of people. And the people keep changing.
Right.
And instead of a family, you have a family reunion, or you have a block party that shows up in one house. That's the issue. The
Okay.
issue is the use of in a single family residence to turn it into a transient.
So we will allow the rental, but it needs to be a minimum of 30 days.
No, a minimum of 31 days. I think.
31 days. Okay, there we go. That's the part that I was missing out on. I'm sorry.
So you can't rent for less.
For a
than 30
weekend, right? Or break up a month to multiple
The
families.
statute as it exists today, in my opinion, prevents that. They want to clarify it and make it clearer.
Okay,
Okay, it says transient as it is. Okay, so it allows a family. It changes the family. They changed the family language so that it comports with the Constitution. And then they wanted, the building department wanted it even tighter to define transient, because there is no definition in the zoning code of transient.
Can I ask a question? I just want to clarify the definition. I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify the definition of the type of dwelling we're talking about, because we've said single family home. and
room
dwelling.
or rooms or
So-
home.
Okay, so in terms of statutory definition, is there a difference? Because you've said single family home, you've said home.
Home.
We
just-
have apartments in Somers, we have condominiums. Is there language, is the intent to have language that would cover all residences? Whether it is a single family home, whether it is.
Yeah, I see where this is going.
In a, whether it's an apartment. Right, Avalon, for example, whether it's something that's owned in a
That's why I
condo.
would suggest the word home,
Home.
not single family.
So home, okay,
Because.
You had
know,
said singles,
when
that's why I
did the
had to go out.
research, one of the big problems that's going on with Airbnb are apartments in New York City, which have nothing to do with us, but you know, that's where they're having a problem. And you know, the tenant is able to make more money than the landlord down in the city.
Understood. So for the sake of precision, it's not single family home that
That's
we're
not-
looking for, is home is
Yeah,
the
but
word.
the single family home is where the problem started in Somers.
Right, but for the purpose of your draft
I would
legislation
say
and the
home.
amendment to what we see on the page. Most
Can't,
effective.
why couldn't we add, to really be clear, so we're not revisiting this again when someone finds another loophole, to include the different types of homes, condominiums, single family, multifamily?
Because I wouldn't want to do that in case there's some areas where I don't know about Somers, whether they have these places where you rent for, you know, people who are moving their jobs.
Right.
So I would I would keep the limitation the way it is to just define transient for a rental of room or homes for dwelling, lodging, or sleeping. So dwelling, lodging, or sleeping pretty much does it.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a
Sorry,
question.
I'm still confused about that.
I have a question. Do you really think that if a home is, instead of being rented out on weekends, is rented 12 times at 1 month of a duration, isn't that going to have a negative effect on the community? If they see 12 different families over a year, I find that to be, I'm not sure I understand the
I
concept.
think, Bruce, that's a practical dilemma of how somebody could actually pull that off. You know, renting a place on month-to-month basis and actually getting a new tenant every month. I don't know.
We
Yeah.
have, yeah,
Go ahead.
what we've done in Heritage in some of the condos is that we allow the owner to rent it once a year. Okay, now that once a year could be 12 months, which is usually the situation, or it could be 3 months, or it could be 6 months, but they're not allowed to rent it again for that month. So in the year 2023, they can rent it once for whatever amount of time they want, which usually is several months, but then they can't rent it again. And that further limits the sort of transient nature of the community.
Now that's an HOA regulation, right?
Yeah.
How does this, now the town regulation or legislation is going to trump that? How does that affect their rule to be able to rent out a Heritage Hills condo to somebody?
I think if that's in their deed and their rules, that, you know, they can be stricter than the town.
Right. But to me, I'm still missing the point of why are we changing the language to prevent less than 30-day rentals?
Correct.
So, okay.
Yes.
So we're not saying that we can't rent out.
This is gonna, I think it's gonna be a public hearing in front of the town.
Town board, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
They're
but
gonna
we have to give an endorsement and I want to be crystal clear on that before I do.
So you want to be clear as to.
If we approve or give endorsement on the language change, right? I don't fully understand how the language change impacts the entire context of the legislation. Because what was given to us, it was just literally the language change.
There is no, the language basically prohibits transient, a transient use of a premises.
Currently,
And the building inspector wanted transient defined, so it would be easier for him to prosecute.
so we will define that as a rental that is less than 30 days. Is
Correct.
transient.
Yes.
And that's what we don't want, to prevent multiple people coming in over a month's time.
Correct.
Okay.
Right,
That's-
and we're also, if we accept the attorney's recommendation, are changing the portion which is defining the owner, so the owner no longer is owning a lodging business. They are the owner of the premises.
Right, because owning a lodging business doesn't reflect the owner of a single family house.
Right.
It's not
Correct.
a lodging.
And so
business.
this would also then prevent subletting.
It would, you could sublet, but you can't sublet
For
for,
less than 30
Yeah.
days.
No, you can still sublet. It just
Oh, you
can't be
can.
less than 30 days.
that's all.
Okay, all right, that's, now this is the clarity that I was looking for here, so. Third,
So, yeah. So you'll put something together, send it to us and we'll respond to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other board member comments?
All right, and we'll respond quickly because the.
Tomorrow night,
is
right?
Tomorrow night.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm on it.
Our next meeting is Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. Make a motion, unless there's any other comments, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, do we have enough information now to return to the issue of the minutes? Or do you want to,
I have, yeah, I'll revise and.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
We'll
great.
vote on them next meeting.
Okay, good, all right.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I told